Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.
Are your headphones on your head?
They are.
And you're ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock.
Okay.
Let's do this.
All right.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about The Weeknd.
The Weeknd.
Who played at the Super Bowl.
At the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
We're
That's
talking
good.
about The Weeknd.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Super Bowl show? What do you think of give me your Super Bowl rundown from beginning to end.
Well, the funniest thing
Because
is...
that's all anyone cares about on the Biofriendly Podcast.
Absolutely. To tell you the truth, last week we had, we opened up with Coffee Talk, right?
We did.
And we had a listener on our YouTube write, I actually enjoyed the Coffee Talk.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay.
It has been deemed a worthy contribution to just chit-chat a little bit.
Well, that's not the first time. I mean, literally, one of our previous tags was tangential, but worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we
that
are.
Was from a a listener
who listened to the show and enjoyed the tangentiality of it all.
Yeah.
But
I do want to know your thoughts on the Super Bowl.
Well, I wanted to tell you the funniest part was I don't have cable.
Wow.
I don't have cable. And
you cut your cord cutter.
I cut my cord, and this isn't new. I didn't jump on the trend. I did this 8 years ago.
I'm going to be the last person who cuts his cord.
Well, because you're a big-time sports fan.
I do like my sports.
And that's the thing is I think that is one of the strongest reasons to hold on to cable is sports. You got to be able to have the live experience.
Yeah.
So I was talking...
How am I supposed to watch the Clippers if I don't have the Fox Sports app?
Exactly.
And
I like sports, but I'm not as committed to them as you are, and so I get it.
I just realized I said that you can't get the Fox Sports app unless you're on the Fox Sports channel.
Okay.
Which means I have to, because I'm like, well, if it's on the app, why don't you cut the cable, you idiot?
You have
That was
to
the
have
thought
the
that I
network.
had as I was speaking to the audience. Who was calling. I heard someone call me an idiot. Wow. They called in on the phone.
You were right. I heard it from here.
Yeah. But no, I have to. The app doesn't work unless you have cable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so the morning of the Super Bowl day, I knew that I wanted it to be on whether I watched it or not. There was something about it. I was like, I want the ability to watch the Super Bowl.
Even if you don't watch it.
Yes. And so I talked to my brother and I was like, we're not doing Super Bowl parties this year. And I was like, I'm just annoyed that I don't have cable. I want to be able to watch it. So I was looking up ways to watch it. And the thing I kept running into was like, well, you got to sign up for this app, or you got to have this provider, or you got to log into this and that and the other thing. But I found a loophole.
Antenna?
I found a loophole. Okay. I did try an antenna, but I couldn't get CBS.
Couldn't get it work.
No, it wouldn't load up. But I found a loophole.
Okay.
On my living room TV, I have paired a PC computer for gaming purposes.
Okay.
Well, one thing that the great part about Super Bowl and other big events is they'll allow you to stream it from a computer, but not on an app.
Really?
So you had to have a service or whatnot, but they know that there might be people in the world that only have a laptop and don't have a television in their house. And so they'll let you watch it on cbssports.com. So I brought the computer up, I brought up the app, went full screen, and I was able...
And you watched the Super Bowl on cbssports.com.
Yes, I watched the first 2 quarters, watched the halftime show, and then after that I was like, we all know where this is going.
Yeah,
I don't see it going any other way.
The Tom Brady's, that's what TB stands for, right? On the thing, the Tom Brady's?
Mm-hmm.
The Tom Brady's were a lot better than the KC.
Yep.
Which I think stands for Kentucky
Mahomes.
Crowns.
What was that guy's name? The chicken. Yes.
Pat Mahomes.
Pat Mahomes.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Pat Mahomes.
And to be fair to poor Pat Mahomes, who was running for his life all game.
Yes, he was.
He was just all over
putting A for effort, Pat Mahomes.
My gosh. Apparently, like they're starting 3 of their starting offensive line guys, who are the people who protect the quarterback, had COVID. So they had 3 rookie backup just Dorcases.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
I hope those Dorcases are listening.
Yeah, I know those poor guys. They're like
2 gigantic NFL players.
I got onto the NFL. I'm good at football.
I'm a good football player.
You know how hard it is to get to the NFL? I'm incredibly good at football. Just because I'm not as good as those guys.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
What's that? That's from a song, isn't it? Put on the black.
Jack. Yeah.
Did it something? I need to know my country music.
Yeah. Don't be coy, Roy.
Don't be coy, Roy. Get on the butt. That's
absolutely. No, you can say butt.
I can say butt. Okay.
This is a PG show.
PG show. Yeah.
Butts allowed.
But okay. Very good.
Yes.
We're almost done. I felt the same way. Like it was. I was so excited for it, and then it turned out to be a big waste of time. I was very happy with the commercials this year, though, and unlike everybody on social media, I feel like you either have people on social media saying that the weekend, like the show was too, like, why would you spend so much money on something when people are in a pandemic was half of the thing I saw.
Right.
And then the other half of the thing that I saw was, well, there's no production value. This was terrible. There wasn't enough money spent on the show. And I thought, I saw that, I was like, here's this poor guy, probably like this poor offensive lineman I just made fun of. Yeah. But here's this guy who's like made it to the greatest musical moment probably of his life.
Totally. He's a Canadian.
He's trying to make it work. He's like, look, we're gonna make it as fun as we possibly can. We're gonna get employed a ton of people.
Yeah.
You saw how many people are out there. I mean, there was, I don't know how many violinists there were, but there was
a lot of violinists, a lot of people on the field.
A lot of people on the field. And I was like, well, this is, hey, this is awesome. And then there was a lot of fun and the music was good. And I thought, I didn't know the guy. I recognized a couple of songs.
Yeah.
But not because I'm not cool enough anymore.
Yeah.
Apparently Super Bowl has passed me.
Yeah.
And I'm now, I don't know who the singers are anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I did recognize a couple of songs because my kids listen to them.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, and this was my only complaint about the halftime show. I was like, don't they usually have somebody who's got like 8 or 9 or 10 mega hits? And
then collab.
And then do collab. And so, if you don't know every song, you know almost every single song, and you're dancing along and singing. And then I was like, and then I heard the one thing, and I was like, well, that's the only hit. And then Owen, my son, goes, well, no, because you were singing along to the song when he was in the mirrors. He knew the name of the song. He's like, that was the second hit. So there were 2 hits. Yeah. So you're wrong. Because he knows all their songs.
He knows all the songs.
Because he's a fan of
and he's young.
Because he's young, right?
And he hears that stuff.
And then I realized when I got stomped by my son that I can't.
You're out of the loop.
I can't make it.
You're not cool, old man.
Can't critique Super Bowl halftime shows anymore because they're not for me.
I know. I saw a lot of negativity about it, and I was kind of like, somebody else wrote this. They said, you guys have been locked up too long. You hate everything. You hate everything.
You spent too much money. Oh, you didn't spend enough money.
I just thought,
shut up.
People love to complain. I sat down. Look, my family's not a sports family, but I sat my boys down and we turned on the halftime show and I said, guys, watch. And they enjoyed it.
Yes.
They smiled. They thought, this is cool. This is fun. And I thought.
And that guy was great. He was a good showman. It was a good show. It was good dancing. The music was fun. It was, they dropped him from a crane from the sky. It was great.
I thought it was great. I had a good time. But if you don't like the weekend,
then hang out during the weekdays.
Hang out during the weekdays, I guess. But anyway, that was my Super Bowl experience. I had fun.
Yeah.
And then
I thought the commercials were on point this year. I thought it was the best commercial year in a long time for Super Bowl.
There's a funny environmentally related Super Bowl commercial.
Saki it to me, my friend.
The Oatly commercial. The Oatly milk.
I love that one.
I did too.
It was so dumb.
And
it was right up my alley.
Super dumb. I saw it and I thought, oh, that's cute. That's fun. I didn't give 2 thoughts about it, but again,
I drink almond milk though.
Yes. Well, we usually drink almond milk, but my wife started buying Oatly. So it's in my house now.
Like for that or beforehand?
No, beforehand.
Really?
We already have
it.
So
they've penetrated the market.
They have. They're in.
Wow.
They're in our heads.
They're in our heads.
But Oatly, they ran, and again, this was an example of people talking on the internet about like, that was stupid, that was dumb. But here's what's brilliant about that ad. Yeah. They're a Swedish-based company. They shot that commercial in 2014. So 7 years ago, they filmed this commercial.
Wow.
They aired it in Sweden for a very short window of time because at the time, there were these milk lobbyists, and they were like, get that ad off the air. We don't need people to know that you could have oat milk. Oh, I blew out our speaker again. Sorry.
You did?
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep talking while he fixes our speaker. Every once in a while, you'll notice in this show that we break our show.
Yeah, we do.
And when that happens, we usually announce it live on the air. We don't cut anything out.
We don't cut it out. If anyone's
wondering about this show, if we do it live, we basically always do it live. I think there's occasions where we might cut out, like if
something went majorly
somebody
wrong.
says a bad word. Like we have, like sometimes the guests
we had a bleep or two.
The guests will do something and not realize it, and then we gotta be like, you know what? Let's just save ourselves some pain and just remove that section.
What do you mean guest? You mean Noel?
What? I never swear. I don't know what they're talking about. I am the most reliably PG person on the show.
This is correct.
Yeah, but we don't edit me though, don't we? We bleep me.
We bleep you.
Yeah.
I don't cut you out. I just put sound effects over you when you go, whoops, I'm not supposed to say that.
Yeah, that's it.
So Tangent's almost done. Oatly milk. They did this ad. They shot it 7 years ago. It ran for a short time in Sweden. And then Oatly was like, well, let's pay for it to run during the Super Bowl. And they knew in their heart of hearts that there would be a large portion of people who
would hate it.
That's dumb. Yeah. I hate that. Why was that in the Super Bowl? So they had shirts ready that said, I hated that Oatly commercial.
Perfect.
And they if you went to their site, you could get one for free, and they sold out like that. Yep. And
Good for them.
they said, look, love us or hate us, you're talking about oat milk now.
You are.
Mission accomplished.
I mean, those folks. What, Norway or Sweden? Sweden. Yeah, those folks up in the snow. up in the Scandinavia. Thank
Northern
you.
Hemisphere.
Sometimes in the Scandinavian peninsula or whatever it is up there. They really know how to.
They do.
They really know how to promote. They know how to do what they're doing.
They do.
Speaking of which, and this is the last little part of the tangent.
All right, guys, stick with us.
I got convinced last night. By a director who we work, Ernie Ernesto.
Yes,
Ernesto
good
Sandoval.
friend, great guy, talented director.
Absolutely. So he was doing a project with Talia, and he was recording a voiceover. And so I chatted with him, and he was talking about the show called Norseman on Netflix.
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh my God! He said you should check it. And I watched it. Now talk about Scandinavians getting it right. It's hilarious.
Really?
It's like
I will check this out. It's a
Vikings.
comedy.
It's Vikings, right? Except it's going into it goes into their feelings. Like it goes into like how like the regular life stuff of a Viking. Like what makes
that sounds perfect
what
for me.
makes a Viking's life
Emotional
normal.
Vikings.
Yes. Except that doesn't stop them from also being Vikings, and like they'll use the sword and cut things, just obliterate things in half and just be monsters. But then they go back to how that makes them feel.
Oh. I'm in.
It's funny.
Sold.
I'm in on Sweden. I'm in on Norway. I'm in on Finland.
Well, I'm
in on Vikings.
That could make the end of year recap.
Yeah,
it could.
All right,
if it's that good, we'll see. How it goes.
And they made another Scandinavians in the Super Bowl when Will Ferrell went to. Yes, that was a great commercial.
We shared that on our socials because it is such a great. I got to give a shout out to Mike Carroll who sent us that ad, but it was the. It was the ad where Will Ferrell finds out that Norway is ahead in electric vehicles, and he rounds up people to go. Keenan, and then what's her name?
Aquafina.
Aquafina.
Yeah, we got to beat Norway.
We got to beat Norway. And apparently, I guess his wife is from that part of the world. I guess she's Norwegian.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was. I think it's even.
So Mike jumped the gun on that one. He got it too.
He had it before the Super Bowl.
He already knew.
He sent it over.
Good
and
for
you,
Mike.
Yeah. Way to go. Yeah. Way to go, Gros Michel.
Gros Michel. That was a funny commercial. That was a winner too.
Yeah. I loved it. That's the kind of energy
they
we
think
need.
they're going to Norway, and then one of them ends up in Finland.
One's in
and
Sweden.
He goes, it's like, you're in Sweden. He's like,
It's so great. It's great. And then apparently Norway has since made response commercials that are basically like talking to Will and being like, bring it on. We'd love for you guys to beat us in electric vehicles.
Good for them. So. See, this is how we do it.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Okay. We ready to get the subject?
Oh, do we have to start this podcast?
No. If you want, we could just talk about it. Could be called episode 102, Super Bowl and Reflections on Commercials.
I love it. Let's do it. We'll
do it. Today, I have this article right here from really smart people at Yale.
I like Yale.
And it says, Assisting Evolution. Okay. How far should we go to help species adapt?
That's a wonderful article idea.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. So we have a couple things here across the board, but what they're talking about is, well, you can guess, right, what they're saying in that headline.
Yeah.
What are they saying?
I mean, it's basically, it sounds like, how are we going to... how can you adapt species so they can survive, or adapt the environment so that species can survive, right? In an area.
Yep.
And then is it okay? Is that an ethical? Are we crossing an ethical boundary? That would be my guess.
That's your guess, and you would be correct. It's basically, we've got species, and there were several articles, here's some of the headlines. In the race against climate change, many animals may not keep up.
Yeah.
Many animals can't adapt fast enough to climate change. These are all headlines. If you go search this kind of subject, this is what you're finding, which is, okay, we know that certain bird species, for example, can figure out, okay, insects are more prevalent during this time of the season.
Yeah.
So instead of, mating and having children during this time, we're going to have to shift it back a little bit because now the seasons are different, and so they can adapt to that. Or they even talked about how a species could learn, well, if we could get our size a little bit smaller, then we could be cooler and not affected by the heat. But that change might not be able to happen fast enough.
Well, that's the thing is normally when there's a change in the environment, it's gradual and it's over time, and you have time to breed for a few generations to start to pick the winners. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how evolution works. Is you pick the survivor, like that which it's the same as we were talking about the virus before, right?
Yeah.
That which survives.
Yeah.
Right. So we're kind of in an unusual situation where we're doing things a little faster, and it's probably a little tougher for some of these species to adapt.
Yeah.
That being said, and probably one of the questions that makes the ethical quandary, right, is some of them will. Yeah. Some will figure it out and survive and make it and keep on living on the planet, and that's the way nature was intended to work, and maybe that's the way it should work. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
That question came up a lot, and so this article, the one that I talked about from Yale, it's specifically talking about. I didn't know this, but there's a large amount of feral cats in Australia.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot.
There's a,
and they were brought there.
I need to.
They weren't natively there. Some British guy on a ship was like, I'm gonna bring mittens down to Australia.
Cats, rabbits, like there's frogs we brought. Like Australia's the classic place. I gotta get my uncle on to tell a story, but like Get him on the phone. Get him on the phone. They some insect or cricket or something.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew the hell what I was talking about, but I'm just going to give the broad version because I don't remember.
Everybody who listens to this show knows that you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Such a good point.
You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I was told the story when I was very young, so I don't remember. Yeah. But there was some small something that was brought on a ship that went to Australia that was just destroying nature. Yeah. So then they brought in, I think, a frog in order to eat that thing. Yeah. And it worked. It killed them off. But then the frogs were everywhere. Yeah. And then they brought in some other kind of snake, I think, or something to then take out the frog. Yeah. Maybe it was a mammal. I don't know. They brought something else to kill the frog. And then eventually it led to rabbits. Yeah. So like they got rid of the frog, they got rid of like a bunch of different species they brought in, but now they have so many rabbits in Australia. Of course they do. Because Australia is hopping land, right? You got kangaroos, the mice hop, everything hops in Australia.
Everything hops because there's a lot of hopping ground.
So the rabbits are just flourishing.
Just loving it.
In fact, kangaroos are doing better now too because you've got more water in more different places because of farming. So it's like all these species are just, kind of booming.
Hop City.
Yeah, it's Hop City down there. That's it. But they now have a problem with rabbits, and so now I have a cousin out there who's a farmer, and one of the things he does for extra cash is at nighttime he'll go out and he'll shoot 200 pair of rabbits per night. And then they'll give him money per pair of rabbits.
Because there's plenty.
That's 400 rabbits that he shoots in a night, and he's a terrific. He gets some. Wow. If you brain shoot him, they can use most of the rabbit. Yeah. So, yeah. And he he's like a 98% brain shoot. Like
your cousin is Elmer Fudd.
He's except good at it.
He's good at it, right? Elmer Fudd would mean he can't catch that wascally web.
Yeah. No, his name's Jason, but he's
all right, Jason. You're good at what you do.
No, he's terrific. He's pretty remarkable. But maybe he doesn't do it anymore. He was younger when he told that story.
This was a while ago.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's a lot of rabbits out there, and they have like literally it's a pest problem at this point.
Yeah. It reminds me of I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but it's a story about the starlings, the birds that somewhere along the way, I think it might have been in England, where a child really wanted the starling and convinced the rich parent to make sure that they were imported and brought in, and it ended up being a very devastating bird species to come into the area and flourished and killed and all that stuff because it was like, I want this bird, papa, and it was the worst possible type of bird to bring to that area, and now is there forever. Yeah. But so it's the same thing. It's like sometimes these species are introduced to environments and they become a huge problem, like these feral cats. Yeah. In Australia. Yeah. So it talks about, I'm going to read. Yes.
A cat named Bill, John Williamson. Uh-huh. We're going to listen to that.
Cat named Bill?
And we're going to share it on the, because it's about a feral cat. Woo.
I'm ready.
Oh, it is the funniest song.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is this another Australian singer-songwriter type thing?
It's the same one I played for you when we got this. He's got a bunch of songs. He's a folk singer in Australia.
Okay, so you thought of another one.
Oh, my God. You're going to love this song.
I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm going to read just a little bit just to see. So they've got, over the last several years, Arid Recovery have experimented with 2 threatened marsupial species. This is in Australia. Yep. You have the greater bilby, which looks like a small rabbit with a long nose, and the burrowing batong, also known as the booty.
The booty.
The booty, which has squirrel-like face, skinny hind legs, and a long tail. Yep. They've added they've added a small number of cats to some of the paddocks and then painstakingly recorded the results. The whole idea here is they are trying to get these species to figure out some defense mechanisms.
Okay.
They want to be able to get them in these little small groups to be like, okay, if there's food laying out for you, you need to wait. And so some of them are starting to figure out these changes.
Right.
And so this is a little bit of kind of a forced
evolution.
Forced evolution in a very short time. And it works a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, because the ones that, you're killing off a high volume of them probably who fail, but the ones that succeed, know they've succeeded.
Yes.
And therefore, you know which ones you got to get breeding.
Yes, exactly. So this is an example. This is a kind of forced evolution that I think that doesn't seem, and I don't have enough understanding of biology, but it doesn't seem too obtrusive. Yeah. To try to teach a species a little bit about how to survive and how to protect itself against feral cats, right?
I think that I look at it a little more broadly than a lot of environmentalists do, right? Like we're part. If humans are part of the environment. Yeah. And we are, whether we want to admit that we are or not, we are.
Sure.
And we are able to create a problem like this.
Yeah.
Then it was the environment that created that problem. Yeah. Because we're part of the environment.
Yeah, it's true.
The thing is, the fact that we were able to create that problem means that we also have the ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
So I think that if humankind puts its attention on helping something survive and that thing survives, that fits under evolution.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's part of it. Like that's part. If someone gets helped or something gets helped, and then therefore figures something out and continues to survive, it doesn't matter how it continues to survive. Yeah, it continues to survive.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's interesting because in these other two articles that I found, I need to find the actual quote, but these other articles about species and birds and whatnot, there were people, and it was funny because they would always specify after the scientist or biologist spoke, they would say they were not part of this study.
Oh, okay.
They would say, this is a slippery slope, guys. Yeah. Like a lot of these scientists would chime in and say, like, if we're going to start altering species, this will get out of control real fast. Like, we got to trust in the process of these ecosystems. And if certain things have to be wiped out or adjust on their own, then they got to figure it out. And it was funny because all the ones that would say that, they'd be like, they were not part of this survey. They were not part of this research.
Right.
So it was always kind of this outsider opinion, which was, I think, maybe valuable, but they also weren't.
Look, it's a fair opinion.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're not part of it. It's a fair opinion, right?
Yeah.
Because if something, are you going to be there to keep teaching it to survive and whatever? But the thing is, I mean, for me, that which you don't teach to survive won't.
Yeah.
And so be it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it will if nature allows it. But I think there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that Mother Nature gave us to continue to survive.
Yeah.
And one of those tools is help.
Yeah.
And otherwise why do parents help their children?
Yeah.
Why do tigers help their cubs? Help is part of the deal.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's
like you said, we are part of the environment.
Yeah.
If it was caused by us and us fixing it, it's still part of the natural cycle that we'll fix it.
And if for some reason something changes and we die off, we stop doing it, and then that causes other species to die off, well, then that's how it went. Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have no idea why the species that are here now.
Yeah.
Some of it, there could be, I mean, cats could exist because at some point, and I'm not saying this is the case, but theoretically, maybe there was one cat left and they were screwed and they were done. And then that cat happened to get helped by a random dog that killed something else. And then it found some other thing that was vaguely cat-like, had children, and then it just exploded. And that was a better combo. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know.
Yeah.
All we know is today there's a lot of cats.
Yeah. Yeah. And this applies. So this applies into another piece that I think links to this perfectly, and it's a subject that you love: coral reefs. Mm-hmm. So this is from EcoWatch, and it says scientists discover why coral reefs are turning white, informing restoration possibilities. And what this article kind of touches on is basically from the years 2014 to 2017. The heat wave in the ocean bleached out like 75% of the coral reefs.
Tons of coral.
And so it was a huge problem.
Yeah.
But there were some, like in Kaneohe, I'm not saying that right, Kaneohe, Kaneohe Bay in Hawaii, were also hit hard. But there were certain reefs in the area that maintained their golden hue. They survived.
That are resilient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they still, here it says, but among the damaged corals in that bay, following the heat wave, some bore their healthy golden hue.
Call in if you're from Hawaii. And
yes, if you can help.
Kanahohe?
Yeah, it's Kano. Kaneo. Kaneohe.
Oh, I like Kaneohe or something.
Yeah, Kaneohe. Yeah. That's probably it.
Yeah.
I've never been to Hawaii.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that reef. I've never been there. That's good. That's cool.
But we'll go with Kaneohe. That works. That sounds great. That sounds like it would fit. So, but they are finding that, okay, we've got some coral reefs that were able to survive.
Okay.
The algae.
Yeah.
What's living in them helped protect them.
Yeah.
So this comes to the question of interference in a way that's a little bit more like, well, maybe we could add algae to coral reefs. So
transplant algae from successful coral reefs into ones that are not successful.
Maybe we could develop a way for all these coral reefs to come back,
right?
By altering their ecosystems.
Yeah.
So again, this is that question of what are the impacts, and that's something that people have to be okay with.
It's fascinating, right? Because then you think about the algae that used to survive on that coral before. Mm-hmm. Before the whatever. It's like we care about these reefs, so we want to keep the coral reefs alive, but is the old algae part of what made them special?
Exactly.
I don't know, right?
Exactly.
That's an interesting thought, because then you have the question of okay, if we do something, we might keep them alive, but what if the other algae can find a way to continue to survive?
Yeah.
Like, what if something happens in the next little while that some of the algae there figures it out and then grows up and then can survive on that reef, because that's possible.
Yeah. Right.
And then you brought in some other kind of algae that maybe that one is intrusive. Maybe that one starts to take over and dominate and kill, and maybe you cause, as a human, the extinction of a different algae.
Yeah.
And so that's the other side of the argument that some of these scientists will be talking about. It's like, if you start getting involved in messing with this, are you unintentionally screwing something else up?
Right.
And then does this other algae create problems for the aquatic life in Australia, for instance, where you have tons of bleaching?
Is it the domino effect? Like if we as human species started to get, let's go the opposite direction, it starts to get cold.
Yeah.
And it's cold everywhere.
It's cold
and
right
so
now here.
It is.
It's really chilly. It's sweater weather, my friend.
It's lovely. It's lovely. It gets cold, and so scientists figure out a way to genetically alter humans to have built-in jackets.
Wow.
So we don't have shirts anymore. It's like this thing grows out of us, and it's like a skin jacket. And that's how we've been altered to be in the cold, right?
Wow.
That sounds kind of weird and cool.
So we're all just walking around with no shirts on.
No shirts, but we got skin jackets on. Wow. And so they cover our whole body. Maybe they're a little furry.
I mean,
maybe they're furry.
I'm yoked.
Right.
And stacked.
Of course.
And gorgeous.
And
so no problems here.
Right.
Yeah.
Or are you hiding your stoke yak body underneath your flesh furry jacket?
My flesh jacket. That's terrible sounding. I don't want to call it that.
Okay, let's call it a human coat. No, that sounds terrible. Anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is this a terrible example?
What
I was trying to say is that would be altering the human species as a whole, genetically interfering. That then might be a problem.
Right, down the road.
Because one, you have to change back into warmer climates. I don't know if this example makes any
sense.
sense.
If global warming then kicks up, and now it's
180 degrees outside, and we're covered
and I'm wearing a jacket.
Fur jackets. Or let's say your entire career was bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And now it's ruined. Now you cannot flex for a living.
Because you're always covered in this coat.
You're always covered in this coat. It's built in your skin.
We used to have coats.
We did.
We had fur. We had fur all over, like hair all over.
And we shed that fur because we wanted the world to see us as we are.
Because naturally we evolved that way.
We did.
See, and there's the other side of the argument.
So that's that. So even though my example was preposterous and ridiculous and very biofriendly podcast, it stands to reason that a lot of these scientists we're saying it's a dangerous thing to interfere too much.
And it's a fair argument.
It is a fair argument. And so I don't necessarily know enough in the arena to say I could say one or the other. I think it's case by case.
It's like what that judge that everybody talks about when he says, I don't know what pornography is, but I'll tell you when I see it.
Judge Ito? Who said that?
That was, I believe it was Judge Ito.
Judge Judy.
Yeah, Judge Judy.
Yeah.
It was Judge Judy Ito.
Judge Judy Ito.
It was Judge Wapner, Judy Ito. No, I don't know. Have you ever heard that? That's like it's an old saying. I think it was a Supreme Court justice actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's something that I probably should have looked it up at the time when I heard it, but again, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think it was a Supreme Court justice who was trying to determine whether or not something is art. It's like, is it art or is it pornography?
Right. Is it one or the other?
Right? Because there's a fine line, and the answer was, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough. It can be tough to judge because one person's art is another person's not art.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And anyway, so
I hear what
for
you're
each
saying.
person, it can be. For each person, probably there's a different threshold as to what there is, but it's kind of similar in this. Like, at what point is it? At what point is it aiding a species to survive, and at what point are you altering the planet? And will you know it when you see it? Like for me to put a bunch of a species that's getting overrun by a cat that you already introduced, as a mistake, and then having them learn and then encouraging then the reproduction of those which learn so they can continue to survive. It's funny. I consider that to be art, if you will.
Yeah, I do too.
Right?
I do too.
So introducing, like, I love the coral reefs, and we know this, right?
Yeah.
And a solution that keeps them working sounds great. But I do think that there's potential repercussions here when you're talking about, like, this is like changing the forest for the fish, right? It's like it's making different kinds of, like, bacteria on trees to help different kinds of trees survive better so that they stick around, not knowing what that's going to do to the other trees that exist or what lives, right? So it's like you could screw up everything.
Totally. You could bring algae to a coral reef that's been bleached and is dying. Yeah. But that algae could be lethal to all the octopi in the area. Could be something that could wipe out a very rare strain. You just don't know.
You don't know. And then of course, then other Noel, who, when I argue with myself, I do this all the time. The other Noel was
that's how he spends his weekends. Not doing Super Bowl shows. Yeah. He debates ethical animal and species questions.
Yeah, with myself until I come up with an answer that I'm happy with, which it takes some time. It takes some time, a while. But but then the other question is, if the coral reefs are bleached and they're not recovering, then is that killing off other species also, right? So
boy, what a catch-22 we have.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's maybe kind of a difference between one thing or the other.
Yeah.
Is my point between what they're doing with the reefs and what they're doing and
there's probably a scale. No, there's probably a scale. I would imagine that in the scientific community, there's probably some kind of scale. You know how with Pluto, they said, okay, well, we can't call it a planet because it's smaller than some of these asteroids out there. And if it's smaller than some of the asteroids, we have to start naming...
It's the same size as its moon.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. Exactly. We have to start naming literally thousands of these rocks floating around as planets also if we give it to Pluto.
Right.
So scientists figured out, they were like, there's a scale that we have to acknowledge. Yeah. And so I would have to assume when it comes to coral reefs, when it comes to species, when it comes to... They have to have some kind of, like, what are the pros, what are the cons? What will we gain? What will we lose? What's at stake? And they measure that and say, all right, this is a project worth pursuing, and we should definitely do it. We should give the humans fur
jacket. Let's bring the fur back.
Let's bring the fur back.
Bring the fur back and a layer of blubber.
Yes, I want us all to, I don't know, I think it would be great. We wouldn't have to think about what to wear every day. You just have, like, your fur jacket.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And no, that's a thing. That's and the ladies too?
Yeah. Everybody.
Wow.
Everybody's in a fur.
So you like furry ladies?
I don't like them. I just want everybody to survive. I want everybody to
survive the hypothetical freeze.
We have the world that's going to freeze, and everybody needs to have a nice furry jacket on. Look, you know me. I'm Sweaty McSweaterson.
You are.
I do not want to be stuck in a furry jacket for the rest of my life.
But you're willing to
I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Problem.
If the scientists say this is the only way we're going to get through this negative 100-degree frozen planet
that we know is coming. Because we watched Snowpiercer.
We watched We watched The Day After Tomorrow. Ice Age.
This is where it ends.
This is
how it goes. It gets super hot, and then it gets super cold.
Super cold.
And then we all die.
Yeah.
But not if we have fur jackets.
Yeah, not if we have fur jackets, man. I guess maybe we just ask the scientists that when they genetically modify us to have fur jackets, that they have sleeveless options.
So we got the Han Solo.
You get the furry vest, but your arms are still open.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm talking out of my butt.
Yeah. No, that's a good place to talk. As good as any.
Yeah. Right.
Your last thing you just said about Pluto.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to listen to that Neil deGrasse Tyson thing that I told you in the podcast and everyone else listened to?
I tune you out so often.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't even remember what you said. No, I didn't. Unfortunately, probably at the time it was something that I was like, "Ooh, I want to," and then I got distracted by a squirrel.
Yeah,
and then it's all gone.
Well, okay, so basically, the only reason that Pluto ever was a planet is because we believed, certainly based on how Neptune was discovered, that there's or maybe it was Uranus. Maybe it was Uranus. Anyways, I think it was Uranus actually. The way it was discovered that Uranus was that it was Uranus. Was that that there must be another planet out there because the math showed that there was gravity affecting something. Right. And so there had to be a ninth planet.
Yeah.
Right. A planet X. And so there was the search just went on about how to find the planet X, and they found Pluto. They're like, oh, thank God. We solved the problem.
Our assumption was right.
X.
It's right there.
And then you find out then however many laters when the great Miles Standish was just like, well, let's see if because Pluto's not big enough to be this planet. It's not
it can't be planet X.
It can't be. That place is not big enough. And we're looking for this planet still that doesn't exist. So he looked through all the data, and then one data point was wrong. And a data point's wrong. So if the data point's wrong, then he takes that out. It's like, first remove this and see everything else, and everything else matches. And when all that matches, it's like there is no planet X. There is not. It doesn't exist.
Oh.
The gravity problem isn't there.
Scientists can be wrong too.
Yeah.
Again.
It's hard. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson's whole thing was, is science is hard.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's hard. And it's the same. So that's a good example of this species thing. We want animals to survive. We want species to continue on. We want look, last week we did newly discovered species and orchids and all sorts of cool stuff. We want these things to go on. But this Earth makes some of its own judgment calls.
Yeah.
And some of this is saying, okay, well, if spring is going to be later and summer's going to be, if the climate is changing and, drought is where it's not supposed to be and it's wet where it's not supposed to be, some of these animals are going to have to adjust and change. And there may be things that we don't like that happen because of that.
Yeah.
But if we step in, the Earth might be correcting itself in a way that if we step in, it could be an issue. Right. And that's something to consider, right?
Right.
It's like...
it's just one of those things. It's like it's either way, something will occur.
Yeah.
The question is, do we intervene and make it occur in a way that we've affected it, or do we let nature take its course and it occurs the way nature believes it should occur, right? And again, I'll maintain that we are part of nature. So if we intervene, it's still natural, potentially. I mean, it depends on how much we're doing, I guess. Yeah. I mean, man, I could debate myself on this particular topic for months.
Totally.
It's a good topic.
Let nature take its course, maybe. Right? Like, that's the funny thing.
When Noel wants it to.
When it makes sense. Yeah. But that's the funny thing is that's the idea of that phrase that we've heard our whole lives. Let nature take its course. It's like, but I may have messed with the course as part of the environment.
We absolutely have.
Yeah, we have.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Like we've 100% messed with the course. We've taken we've taken quite a lot.
We are just hungry hippos.
We are hungry hippos.
Yeah.
And so if we can do something to help, then I think we should. But yes, let's keep our eyes open.
Keep our eyes open.
Keep our hearts open.
Keep your hearts open. Be willing to help. And what can you do as a listener to help changing of species? I guess learn more about what you can do to help protect environments and species. And if there's a certain group of people that are completely depleting an area of land around the world just to sell you a product, then I don't know, maybe don't get that product anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There it is. Well, no, like, I mean, listen to the...
Like the palm oil thing. That's what I was thinking of. That was a thing that recently came up in our stories and our social media. It was like somebody shared, like, you know, hey, this can have a huge effect on habitats for plants and animals, and it has a lot to do with how much humans demand it, and there are alternatives.
Yeah.
And that's... You know,
that's
what we're doing.
That's it. I think, you know, that's what we talk about on this show all the time. Today was a bit more abstract, a little more informative.
Sure.
A little more.
Sure. Was that my fault?
No, it's great. We got to do this sometimes where we just philosophize about the environment.
It is a philosophical question.
It's fun. Look,
it is.
Look, you might not learn a simple trick or tip every day on Biofriendly Podcast, I guess. But if you don't, you will at least find out more about the environment and find out more about what we're doing out there.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
And learn how to stream the Super Bowl if you don't have cable.
So
they did get a walk away with that.
They got a lot out of this episode.
They got a lot.
A lot.
And they learned that The Weeknd did a great job.
They did. And that we should lay off.
And they learned about Oatly. And
Will Ferrell and the Norwegians.
Will Ferrell. And he might be married to a Norwegian or a Swede. I don't know.
He could be.
Maybe, possibly. I think she's in the commercial. I think the wife. I think when she goes, "You're in Sweden," I think somebody said
that's his wife.
That's his wife.
That's wonderful.
So
I hope that's true. It's one of those stories you find out later that's not true. And you get sad. And you're like, oh man, I wish that was true.
I wanted that to be true.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, buddy. Is there anything else that we should throw out there philosophically before we say goodbye?
No, if I debate this with myself anymore, my head's gonna explode.
This will be the 3.5 hour Biofriendly podcast with a lot of.
I'm going to change my mind and argue about this for the next 4 days. I will be. It won't stop.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. We are your beacon of light in a gloomy environment.
Carefully avoiding neonicotinoids.
We are the Siegfried and Roy of podcasts. And I think that's all we got.
I think that's all we got.
Let nature take its course.
Maybe. Today.
It didn't stick. We would have known if in the moment it was tag worthy. But do you remember how we say goodbye?
Yes.
Cheerio.
Did we do it?
I should leave that in there.
It's the Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.